Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You've got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. Oh no, oh my God, we're recording.
Let's make sure. Is it tapped?
No kidding.
Hello,
I hope
Bueller.
it's recording.
Bueller.
All right, this is Greg from the International Teacher Podcast. Welcome. I'm here with my friend JP Mint. Kent is not here right now, but JP, how you doing today?
Hello. Good morning from Mexico.
Well, I tell you what, JP, this is the first super interesting episode that we have because I totally screwed up.
What happened?
Ask me what happened. Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, we have this great guest, and we talked for like an hour and a half. And do you remember about halfway through or 20 minutes?
No, it wasn't halfway through. I think it was about 20
You're like,
minutes.
Greg, are we recording? Because I don't think we're recording.
I think it was about 20 minutes, to be fair, because, I have FOMO. I have real FOMO. So I don't want our listeners who have FOMO to be triggered that they've missed half of the episode. So in fact, listeners with FOMO, you probably only missed about 15, 20 minutes, and Greg and I are going to recap. We're going to do that little puppet show recap.
JP, wait a second. What does FOMO mean?
Fear of missing out.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Generation gap or something. It's FOMO.
Okay, so
brought to you by FOMO, the International Teacher Podcast.
Just for those that are listening that don't have FOMO, those that are afflicted, and it is an affliction. Those who have FOMO are the first ones to arrive at a party and the last ones to leave because they don't want to miss anything, any of the gossip, any of the fun stuff. There's nothing worse for a FOMO than to go home and then hear after you've left, oh, the party really got started. Because then,
don't leave then. Don't leave, right? Stay with us even FOMOs, stay with us because we're going to make it up to you. This is a great episode. We're going to jump in a little bit, but our guest is Dr. Wayne Russell, and we had a great conversation with him. I can't wait to share it. But you know what? Tell us a little bit about what they missed, JP. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Wayne Russell.
So to tell you a little bit about our guest, I saw him on LinkedIn. And so I'm in a number of groups, a number of international teacher and international school groups on LinkedIn. And I kept seeing this name pop up, Dr. Wayne Russell. And he has such a great following, and he asks these very poignant questions of his followers or connections, and they chime in, and he writes an article on his website, and then he adds people's comments as part of the article. So this article is constantly changing until such time he goes to the next article, and then he asks his audience again, hey, what do you guys think of this? What are some of the qualities you're looking for in a teacher or something? And then they all chime in the comment section, and I was part of that group, and I thought, this is really interesting. I think we should have him on the show because I've never seen LinkedIn used this way, where it's almost like an organic article that's information as people are commenting on it. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn and said, hey, would you have any interest in coming on the show? And he's located in South Africa, Greg, but he's an international teacher and a former international principal. So I thought, this is great. This is both international teacher, but also this interesting LinkedIn section. So what did they miss? Do you remember what they missed about his international journey?
Well, the most important part, I think, is that he has a lot to talk about China because he's been in several different schools. He has some good information about China, which is what I'm glad that we didn't miss too much of the beginning with him. And I want to jump into it because China is not something we've talked a lot about with. We've talked about with Brantley a little bit. We've talked about with a number of other people, but Dr. Wayne Russell gets really into it on our discussion coming up. Okay.
So without further ado,
yay.
Here is Dr. Wayne Russell.
All right. And I think we're just getting into the fact, I think we're going to jump in just as he's explaining about LinkedIn. Okay. So, Wayne, let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn, your goal with LinkedIn and the international teaching topic.
My goal, I would say, is just to be a positive voice for international schooling. Not many people outside of international schooling quite understand what it is. So I try to just be a voice and get engagement. So I put some stuff on there that might be a little bit controversial about international schooling and what makes a great international school. And I just encourage the dialogue. So I've got some posts that have received 100 comments because people are disagreeing or not, not seeing it quite like maybe I'm seeing it. But I'm open to changing my ideas, so I get what they're saying, and I'll make a comment that accepts, I guess, their point of view, and then I will edit some of my work on my blog to reflect what other people are saying.
You're doing the university professor thing by putting a little bit of controversy in there, but to develop dialogue and to look at different ways of looking at it, get people talking about the topics in education in international.
Yeah, well, that's why I reached out, Greg, to Wayne because I commented on one of his posts. I happened to see his post. It was talking about accreditation in international schools. I felt comfortable talking about Canada and how Canadian schools accredit themselves. Not they don't accredit themselves, but they get accredited through the Ministry of Education. And then if they're international, they get accredited through certain provincial ministries. I commented something like that. And then lo and behold, the next thing I knew, his article changed on his website and he put in Canadian international schools are accredited from province's Ministry of Education. So I was like, hey, I think that was for me. And it just felt very validating. Like, wow, he just took that and ran with it. And then I saw other people's comments on his LinkedIn post and I saw his blog article transforming. You know, if I visited back like the next day, it was like, ooh, now there's 6 different things. And oh, now there's 8. And he just kept growing his blog article based on the comments. And that's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I did a little bit of a deep dive looking at other articles and other polls. So where did you learn how to do this, first of all? Because I'm quite impressed just with the LinkedIn part.
I don't know if I learned, I don't know. It just came, I like giving feedback to, I guess, from teachers and getting their perspectives. And so, like, my method of observing teachers would be to go into the classroom and then what went well, what didn't go well, and then have a meeting afterwards, right, to get their feedback and like, do they agree, disagree? Because my perspective is not perfect, right? Nobody's, I think, is. Maybe it's I'm pretty open minded. I've been working in like PYP IB schools, so that's one of the learner profile traits is open minded. So yeah, I just try to live that as best I can. But to be honest with you, sometimes I get annoyed at some of the comments because some of them are not quite getting the heart of the post or something. And then everybody has their pet peeves, I guess, and so they would just kind of voice that. And initially it does annoy me, but then I speak it over with my wife, and then I calm down, and then I think more clearly.
Yeah, and do you have trolls? I don't imagine. Are there trolls on LinkedIn? Because everyone has to be a person, right? So I don't think they
Yeah,
can
or
just sort
not
of.
yet. I haven't
No.
encountered a
Okay.
troll, but yeah.
When you were working in the schools in China, were you a principal for elementary? Was it middle school? What level were you doing the principalship for?
Yeah, initially it was elementary school, but then in my last post, I was secondary school principal, so middle school and high school. And actually, my wife and I and our family are heading back to Shanghai in August. One of my schools welcomed us back, and then I'll be a director in the elementary school again. So, yeah, a little bit of a yo-yo kind of thing. But I believe like teachers or teaching and learning is much the same in a kindergarten classroom and a grade 11 classroom. Yeah, I enjoy working with teachers in early years and high school. I find that most of the strategies that I use are transferable across different grade levels.
So China keeps drawing you back. Can you tell us why that is? What keeps bringing you back to China?
Yeah, I think it has some of the best international schools. China actually is the country with the most international schools. The UAE has the most students in international schools, but yeah, it has some of the best schools there. I mean, you go to Beijing, you go ISB and Webb, and then Shanghai, you got the Shanghai American School, Concordia International School. There's just high quality schools. The school I'm going to is called SMIC, also very well established and making waves in the international school community with the quality of their teaching and learning. So yeah, I think it's that. And then also our family, like one of our goals is for the kids to be fluent in Chinese by the end of high school. So for them to take the AP Chinese test. So that's always been kind of a push. I think that also draws us back. And then just the lifestyle in China, or just, I guess, expat in general. There's a lot more exploring locally and traveling and all of those benefits. So yeah, it's a combination of all of those. And then maybe the fourth one is there's saving power in China. So you can purchase a house in or an apartment or something in full after working maybe 3 years in China. You can do something like that. We did that in Durban, South Africa, a few years ago. So the saving power is also great. Even you can travel and do all these things and go to Western restaurants and that and still save quite a lot.
That's why we call this the best kept secret in education is teaching overseas, Wayne. I don't know if you've ever
Yes.
heard our tagline, but and then Greg wrote a book about it. He wrote his second book is called The Best Kept Secret in Education.
Nice. Very good.
Because yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. It's the lifestyle, the adventure, the learning. I mean, you've brought up a great point about kids being able to learn the local language. So in your case, your children will grow up learning Mandarin. They've already had a chance to start that. Is that right? Because they were there. How many years were they in China?
Well, they first arrived. My son was 4 months old. My daughter was 2.5. And then they picked up a lot of things from just the IE, which is your maid kind of thing,
Mhm.
and then going to school there. So yeah, they've been learning Chinese on and off from for like 12 years, I'd say. Yeah.
Since we have a lot of teachers that are entering the program or thinking about becoming teachers, can you tell us a little bit what you've seen with teachers that are fresh out of the States or out of Europe and coming to China? Can you tell us a little bit what that's like for them?
Yeah. Overall, I think it's a very. I mean, I think they come and the honeymoon stage doesn't end, especially if they come out of college or as a single, as maybe a newlywed couple. Yeah, they just have a fantastic time. Yeah, just exploring and enjoying the country. And then also they grow a lot as an educator because the teaching is a little bit different, or the expectations maybe. Most international schools are private schools. They're coming for quite a journey in growth and development, both personally and professionally. And most of them, I think, stay. I think they might change schools. They might go back to the US for a little bit, but they'll come back into the international teaching field. So yeah, I think once you're right, it's the best kept secret. Once you taste it, you want to continue to enjoy it, and so I think they have a good experience.
And so you are heading back to Shanghai. That city seems to have some draw as well because you've mentioned it a few times. I don't did you ever get to work in another city in China, in Beijing or in Guangzhou or
Yeah, we've worked in the Guangdong province, which in Shenzhen, which is about an hour and a half train ride from Guangzhou. That city is quite unique in that it's growing at phenomenal rates. Like it borders Hong Kong, but so Hong Kong obviously has a lot of established and good schools, international schools. But Shenzhen is a very much a happening city. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of good design, and then to support all of those industries, there's a lot of international schools that are opening or have opened since the first one was Sheko International School was 1988, I believe. Since then, it took a while for the next school to start. I think in 2001. But then from 2001, every year there's about 2 or 3 schools that open. So we were at a school there, the PYP school, IB PYP, and it had all the MYP and DP in the school too. But yeah, it was a great experience. Yeah, we loved it. But Shanghai is like home, I think. And maybe it's because it's a very cosmopolitan city, large population. Last I checked was like 25, 26 million. A lot of the best and brightest people are in
Yeah,
Shanghai. Yeah.
those numbers are mind-boggling to a Canadian. That's our entire country's population. What's the population in South Africa? Is it about the same?
I think it's now 50 million. So it's two Shanghai's probably.
Ooh, it's bigger than I thought it was. I was in Shanghai a few times. I lived in Suzhou, just up the road,
Mm.
as we call it,
Mm-hmm.
just up the road. Whenever I came into Shanghai, it was very exciting. I always enjoyed my time. The restaurants are fabulous, and getting to some of those schools, the top schools you're talking about, like Concordia and Shanghai American. I love the excitement. You're right. It's cosmopolitan. It has great shopping. That whole, what is that
Mm-hmm.
street that is pedestrian only? The Bund?
Nanjing Lu.
Oh, Nanjing Lu that leads to the Bund. Is that what the
Yes, yes. It goes between People Square and then the Bund. Yeah, it's a long walking street. Yeah, that's been there.
and
Yeah, since 2004 when I was first in Shanghai. That's been there. It's a pretty popular place. Yeah.
I was there on a Friday night. Oh my gosh. I think all 25 million people were in that street. It was hard not to feel a little claustrophobic in the middle of a crowd, but I just sort of went with it. I was with a friend, a good friend from Beijing, and she just told me, just keep walking, try not to have a panic attack, but it is daunting to a person from a small town arriving. So, can you talk to us a little bit about what are some tips you could give to a first comer arriving in China, a first comer teacher from overseas arriving in China, especially if they're arriving in Shanghai, since you say there are so many international schools there? What are some tips you could give them?
Okay. In general, I think for their mindset, I think obviously like being open minded, but also like a risk taker. Go to the local restaurants. Go to like the little ancient towns. Go experience those aspects of your city. And then from practical point of view, some tips. I mean, make friends with both other expats and with locals. You will need both support systems in setting up everything. Like you got to set up your Wi-Fi in your apartment. You're going to need help going to China Mobile or whatever the phone company is. Yeah, so make friends. Yeah, just maintain a positive attitude. Don't let things bug you too much. Yeah, and just enjoy every moment. Go work hard at school. Get all your work done. Leave at 4:30. Go to the Bund. Go do things that you want to do, and repeat the next day.
And what are you looking most forward to returning? Because it's been a year or two, right, since you've been in Shanghai?
Yeah, like 10 months ago we left.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm really excited to go back to one of my old schools in Shanghai, SMRC. Many of the leaders that are still there, I'll be working with. So they've stayed for 10, 12 years. The school has changed a lot. It's got WASC accreditation in the last 10, 12 years. It's grown from 2,000 to 3,000 students. So yeah, that's probably my number one excitement. I think as a family, we're excited to go back to restaurants like our Mexican favorite restaurant, Pistolera. We've excited to go on buses and subways and rent little bicycles and ride around the city. And then also go to like Yunnan, which is a very cool little province, go on vacations to those kind of places. Yeah, I think that's probably what we're looking most excited to.
Wayne, you may not believe this, and I hate to say this, but of all things, I'm a barbecue man, and I hate to say that the best barbecue I've ever had was actually in Shanghai. There was an
Wow.
American, I don't remember what state he was from. He had opened up a barbecue shop, and it was a restaurant, and it was absolutely the best barbecue, and better than South African, better than Australian, better than even Texas. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I can't believe it. What was the name of it? I need to
I'd have
go.
to look it up. It was 100 years ago.
Yeah, there are. We've been to a few barbecue restaurants in Shanghai. There are a few that are really good, but you find like the best nachos are in Shanghai. It's fascinating. The restaurant scene is really good in Shanghai.
Every time I went to Shanghai, I would go to Tox, TOK''S. If you haven't been there, Wayne, I can recommend it. Montreal Smoked Meat. It was a man
Yes.
who lived in Montreal, and he even brought poutine over. So I would go for Montreal Smoked Meat sandwich. It was fantastic. If you closed your eyes, you were just eating it, you would think you were in Montreal.
Yeah, I think is that one. I think I might have gone to it. Is it near the Bund or near Nanjinglu?
Yeah. That it's parallel. I want to say it's parallel to the water, because
Yes,
I
you're right.
kind
Yeah,
of
no,
like
we've
use the
been there,
water
but
as
it's been a while.
yeah.
To all of our listeners that are maybe in the States, that's just over in China somewhere.
Yeah.
So Greg, Wayne, I'd like to talk a little bit about your knowledge through LinkedIn, the articles in the blog. What is the purpose? Why do you have your website? Like, what are your goals?
Yeah, I think the overall goal is just to be a positive voice in the international school community. The international school community is little understood outside in the, like if you talk to somebody in the US about international schools, there may be like Atlanta International School, Dallas International School, but there's not a broad knowledge. So I guess I'm an educator, right? So like I like to teach. So it kind of flows over to teaching adults, I guess, just sharing ideas and perspectives. So yeah, I think, and then just have good dialogue with different international educators. There's some phenomenal educators in the international field. Getting to see what they post on LinkedIn, getting to see what they do is quite a big encouragement for what I do.
You're doing exactly the same thing that we're doing on ITP, and I think that's why you are a perfect guest for us, because to get into the idea of sharing the knowledge and passing it forward. We have Audrey and David on their podcast,
Educators Going
Educators Going
Global.
Global. They're starting out into the social media and they're trying to hit it hard. We really focus on podcasting. We do link out into LinkedIn and Facebook, and JP is very active, especially in the Facebook groups, but she's just getting started with LinkedIn. So it's great to make a connection with you, because to put a face to your name and to let our listeners know that you're out there, and the whole goal is not to sell them something. We're not trying to sell anything. We're trying to share knowledge from our experience. And you have a vast experience. I mean, to be as an educator and to be as an admin, just like JP, you guys both have knowledge from different levels of education overseas, which is very, very powerful to share.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I totally dumbfounded both of you. You're both like, yep, that's it. What do I say after that? Right? Let's go to the ITP format a little bit here. Can you tell us a police story that maybe happened in South Africa or in Texas or in Shanghai or somewhere around China that you'd like to share? Nothing to get you in
Like,
trouble, but something
yeah, just an
comical maybe?
entertaining little police story.
Now, I've got a few actually. I don't have any.
Oh.
Well, maybe I do have a little one in South Africa, but I have one in Dallas and I have one in Shenzhen actually. My Dallas one, I guess it had to do with the police, but it was more getting involved in the criminal scene. Not as I wasn't the one doing the crime, but I got mugged at gunpoint when I was a
Oh,
student in
no.
college. And that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I had to interact with the police then. I had to go to the police station because they stole my backpack off my back, and it had like my checkbook in. So this guy, even though I canceled my bank account the next day, this guy went and wrote checks to Gap and Nine West and spent like $600. And so I needed to get all those cleared with the credit union or credit people. I had to get a police check. So yeah, I've been down to downtown Dallas, the big police station there. So that's my Dallas one. And also
I'm sorry
there,
that happened.
yeah, no, that's okay. And then another thing is I rear-ended a car, and it worked out that also when I was a student, it worked out that the two girls in the car were illegal citizens, plus didn't have a driver's license and didn't have insurance, nothing like that. I called 911, got the police to come, but they called their friend who's a police officer. He got to the scene first, and that
Oh, no.
changed the whole thing. And my police officer never came. So it was basically the girls got off fine but yeah, I was left with my insurance company obviously fit the bill. And then you're right. Hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble. But in Shenzhen, at a mall, I broke a soap dispenser.
In the bathroom or something? Oh, I'm
No, no,
sorry.
like it was like a sanitizer thing
Oh, yeah. Okay.
by the elevators, right?
Oh,
So I broke that,
okay.
and then the mall person got really mad and said that costs 3,000 RMB or $500. I'm calling the police. So then I went to the police. They didn't cuff me or anything, but they went to the police. My wife was with me. We ended up having to pay for that soap dispenser. But then a week later, the police call me and say, "Hey, is this Wayne? Yes. We're very sorry, but the mall guy ripped you off. So will you please come back to the police station at this time? We'll have the mall person come back and give you back 2,000 RMB of the 3,000." So that whole experience was, fascinating. But yeah,
So he had raised the price of the soap dispenser so he would pocket more money?
yeah, I guess I don't know what his motive was. Maybe he just didn't know what the thing really cost or whatever. But it
Oh,
could be that.
wow.
Could be that. But the police were very honest. I mean, I was impressed that they got down to the bottom of this, investigated it a little bit, and then yeah, called me up and said, "Come back, get some of your money."
I'm just having visions of you in a Chinese police station in an interrogation room for accidentally breaking some kind of a soap dispenser. And they're like, okay, so we have you on video. You deny
Yep.
it. You deny it. Where were you? Let's put the wife in a different room. We'll interrogate her and
Oh,
see if
yeah.
she knows. We're going to
Yeah.
gather some witnesses. I watch a lot of Law and Order. I'm sorry. But what a story. I mean, even having to go to the police station in any country is really breathtaking. I mean, it really gives you pause. That's why we share police stories, because it's part of real life. And
Yes.
we do that on the show on purpose because it's one of the things that I'm afraid of. And I have rules like stay out of the newspaper, stay out of the hospital, and never get into a police station if you can stay out of it in other countries overseas. So to hear these
Yes.
harmless stories that have a little comical side to it, we're not out to get anybody in trouble, but we love the stories because it's very cultural. Doesn't it teach you very like different things about a culture by seeing what happens at a police station?
Now, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question, so it's a first.
Yay. I have another ITP question, Wayne, and that is, are there three things that you need to set yourself up in a new country, or in Shanghai when you return to Shanghai?
Three things. So one thing is obviously all our luggage and stuff that we kind of own. We left some stuff in Shanghai, so it's waiting for us in boxes at my previous school. So we'll get that. But yeah, just taking some comforts, like some food, or not as much as I used to. I remember when I was an international student in Texas, I would fill a whole suitcase full of South African products and then get it over there. But now it's kind of reduced. But getting the luggage right, taking more than you think. Like my school has a excess luggage allowance, so we'll do that. And then once we arrive there, I definitely need somebody to pick us up at the airport. So the school will do that. They'll come, HR will meet us at the airport. And then the apartment might not be ready quite yet. I need somebody to take us to a hotel. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a Marriott, but get us to stay there for a few days so we can transition into the school apartment. I might need a cash advance. I don't know. I might ask the school, can you give me a cash advance to go to IKEA and set up everything? Is that more than three? I don't know. Maybe that's three.
No, that's perfect. And we each have our own basic necessities. It depends on if you're married and with children or single, etc. But every time you go to a new country to live, you need to bring certain things. And JP has to bring her rugs that she's acquired over the years. And I need to have ice for my drinks or a maid, right? Because I need someone to iron for me. And I know in China, it's very easy to get help, to get a driver, or from what I've heard, to have a driver, to have a maid, to have somebody to tutor, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of opportunities.
Yes. Yeah. I guess that's the fourth thing that we would look for is just an IE, a maid for just part time, maybe come in even once a week. It's fine because they can get, good clean of the apartment, plus iron all your shirts and that. And that's for a reasonable price. They could spend 6 hours at your apartment and you pay $50 maybe. And then the driver, yeah, you can definitely like hire a driver full time, and that's what a lot of expats do if they're working at GM or Ford or some of these big companies, multinationals. They will get like a minivan, and the driver will take the kids to school, take the wife around the town, whatever, or the husband. Sometimes the wife's the director at these companies, and the husband's a stay-at-home dad. So yeah, but if you don't have a driver, there's the equivalent to Uber is Didi. So you can get those very readily. They can drive you around, and it's not that expensive. Although you could blow your budget if you just use those exclusively and don't use the public transportation, which is very cheap.
All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITPXpats. That's with an S. ITPXpats is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, and it seems like everything's on WeChat in like China now too, right? Everything's on the WeChat app.
Everything is super easy.
Yes. Yes, for communication, for paying things. Even the beggars have the QR code, and you can scan it and then send them some money. So yeah, everybody uses WeChat, and it's for all kinds of stuff.
You mean if there's somebody on the street,
vegetables on the side of the street, yeah,
or if they're selling something on the side of the street, they even have a way of doing a money transaction through WeChat?
Yes, and it's very easy. WeChat makes it extremely easy.
When we go to restaurants as friends, when we want to, so one person picks up the bill, but then everybody else just makes transfers to that person. Mm-hmm. So, let's say the bill is 1,000 yen, and I've got yuan, and I've got 200 of that. I'll just transfer 200 over to my friend, and he'll collect 300 and 100 and 400. And before you know it, mm-hmm. he's got his bill paid for with plus whatever he bought. Yeah. It was fascinating. I visited from Korea. I visited some friends that were in Suzhou, so that's where I ended up. And it was when Alex pulled out his phone. We were coming out of a mall, a shopping mall with the underground parking lot. He pulled out his phone and he put it up against this reader thing and then drove off. And I said, "What'd you just do?" He said, "I just paid." I was like, "What? You just put your phone up against this thing? What do you mean?" And I didn't realize that whole technology had existed yet. Like China was so ahead of it. But now, of course, we've got Apple Pay, and we have maybe our phones have credit cards that we can, scan. But that technology of having almost like a bank account. Well, my bank account was attached to my WeChat, so I could just pay for everything with my phone.
Yes, I tried to survive without it. Like 3 years ago, up until 3 years ago, I just had a stupid phone. So like a Nokia, and I just tried to survive that way, doing cash and everything. But now, it'd be, especially with the pandemic, they made you show like your health code, and it comes through WeChat, or some of them do come through WeChat. So yeah, you cannot survive without a smartphone and WeChat, and Alipay as well as another one. Those things are essential.
And I'm sure your kids have cell phones because they need to be able to get around the city, and they're often the subway pass is is one of the apps on your cell phone, is it not? So do your children have cell phones, or will they?
Yeah, my daughter just got one, so she'll go back to China with a phone. Our son is going to be 12. I don't think he should have a phone yet, but yeah, it's very safe there, right? So if my daughter and a friend want to go to Puxi from Pudong, they can go. They can walk to the subway station, no problem. go on the subway. I would say this is at a certain age, maybe 14, 15, 16. But yeah, they can just use their phone to scan the subway card. I can give them send them, transfer some money from my WeChat to her WeChat, and they can use the money for the movie or the restaurant. So yeah, it's very cool.
Just tell them to be very careful with the hand sanitizers in the malls.
Yes. Don't get yourself in trouble with those things. Yeah.
Well, safety is a very important issue. When people want to say, what's it like to live there? One of the big questions that always comes up is safety. That's probably one of yours, especially with kids and a family. It's always for all of us, it's a very important question. And knowing that living in China is in, at least in Shanghai or the place that you've been, that's very powerful to hear that from somebody that's been there already, to know that it's a safe place, because that's a big issue that comes up.
Yeah, if you move in over there with children, you definitely want to know that it's a safe environment. And yeah, it's much safer than the US, much safer than South Africa. There are bad things that happen, but it's very rare that you hear them. Yeah, and it helps that there's no guns really in the public sphere, so deadly crime doesn't normally happen.
Yeah, I took a lot of comfort in knowing that there were security cameras everywhere, and
Hmm.
I had an assistant who once told me, I said something about, oh, if somebody takes my wallet or if somebody takes my purse, and she said they would get that person very quickly because there were just security cameras at every intersection. They would, if they were on a motorbike going away, they would be able to catch them. And I just felt very reassured about that, knowing that if something were to happen, but you're right, things don't really happen, because I think because maybe they know they can't get away with it, so it, or maybe it's just not in their manner, in their way to think about that.
Is it safer as a foreigner expat than it is for a local citizen? And I don't know what the answer to that question is. You hear some really extreme stories sometimes of foreign kids getting kidnapped, but I don't think that really happens. I don't know. Maybe it does, but I
I
don't.
never heard
That
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes this is people say this. Maybe also I'm just hypothesizing here, but if a criminal act is done towards a foreigner in a country, they don't want that. They don't want a diplomatic issue, or they don't want escalation that way. They don't. They want to keep the peace, and China wants to be peaceful with the U.S. They don't want any trouble. So maybe this also helps when you're overseas, that you've got the support of your own government. Maybe I don't know, but that's just a guess.
It also helps to have the support of your school. So usually when I go
Mm.
to a country, the school that I land in, they will protect me from other things. If the minute I end up in a police station for any reason, even if it was for a parking ticket, my first outreach would be to somebody at school in HR, just to let them know something's going on. They might intervene. They could help protect. And of course, they're going to have limits on that depending on what's happening. That is my other comfort zone that I rely on.
Mm.
And if it comes down to it, of course, the government would have to intervene too.
Yeah, I think when the school's issuing you a work permit, right? So especially in China, the government looks at the school, that the school must take care of the foreigner or keep the foreigner out of trouble or help the foreigner. It's like the school is your mom and dad. Like
The sponsor.
they are
Yep.
responsible 100% for you.
I remember this story of a teacher in Oman, and I think he went through a red light. He just somehow missed it, or what have you, and got pulled over by the police, and got taken to the jail, got his car confiscated, and the next thing we heard, he was going to have to spend 3 days in jail, and we just went, "What?" Like, oh my gosh, what happened? But his first call was to the school. The school went and said, okay, this is a teacher of ours, we're very sorry he went through the red light. Is there any way that we can kind of alleviate these 3 days? And they said, okay, well, he can spend the night in his house, but he has to come back in the morning and stay until the evening, and then he can go back to his house each night. And that was the concession that the school got him. And I just thought, where in the world could you do that where it'd be like, okay, well, you're going to get punished, but you can sleep in your bed?
And that's a red light. That's not even like hand sanitizer or anything. That's a red light.
You're never going to live that down, Wayne.
Yeah, stop going back to that story because some people might find out about that and then change their mind about.
You might find your mugshot on a
Oh,
poster
JP, quit
just
making
as
fun
you're
of
going
him.
into that store, and they'll be like, "Have you seen this man?
Maybe. I mean,
He
I'm sure there are
vandalized."
pictures of me. Yeah.
I love that story, Wayne, because it is very harmless and I don't think anything will come of it. I really appreciate your sharing that with us. And you have shared a lot with us on this show. I was wondering if we were to say what are some final thoughts that you have for our listeners? Could you share a few final thoughts for us?
The biggest thing is that there are people there that will help you find that job. So there are, and there seems to be every day there's a new agency, but there are a lot of agencies that can help you find that job. I've got a few listed on my website. So you can sign up with some of those. Some of them are free. Some of them require $100 or something. But those are powerful. They open doors or get you leads. So do that. Manage your expectations a little bit because sometimes it doesn't lead to anything. Sometimes you go to a fair, a recruitment fair in New York or somewhere, and there's international schools there, but you don't land the job. So manage your expectations, and yeah, just be open and try new things, and it will all work out. No real harm is going to come from being in the international field. Yeah, I think it's mostly positive. Yeah.
Okay. JP, how about you? Any final thoughts from this show?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Wayne said. You know, if you end up going to a job fair and you don't get any offers, don't let that deter you. Continue to apply for jobs, get your name out there, and feel free also to reach out to people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really growing as a professional network grower, and so feel free to reach out to people on LinkedIn and ask them, you know, how can you improve your interview next time, or do they know of any positions at their school? If there's one particular or two particular schools you really want to target, get to know the people that are already there that are working there, and then just try and get your foot in the door that way with asking how can you improve your candidacy and what can you do to make that possibility happen.
Can I share an anecdotal story that builds off that?
Sure,
Please.
please do.
Yes, work with the recruitment agencies, but you're right. If there's a school like, for example, Concordia International School where I taught, they wanted me to do their application on their website. And it was quite extensive, quite long. But they had questions on there that were specific to maybe a Christian school or that kind of thing. So, yeah, reach out, network with the recruitment agency, do the stuff on LinkedIn, but you must have a friend, or not must, but like I'm trying to say, there has to be someone in your personal network that works overseas in an international school. Reach out to them and express your interest, and they may help you get the interview. They might be the one bugging the principal. What's the possibilities of getting this person over? So really, that's the more powerful way to approach finding a job overseas.
Yeah, a lot of times it's who you know and maybe a friend of a friend who can help you get your foot in the door. That's not to say that if you know absolutely no one overseas that you will not go overseas, because I'm very happy to say that a lot of my clients are getting their foots in the door by just simply applying and applying and applying and not giving up, because it can seem very daunting when you get no responses from schools. You know, you might even worse, you might even have an interview or two with a school and then they just sort of ghost you. I've been seeing that on Facebook a lot, where they said, is this normal? And I think because there are so many applicants for jobs that some schools and some HR departments are just overwhelmed and don't have the procedure or the protocol set up to just thank a teacher for their interview, and we're moving in another direction. And so sometimes it can be quite disheartening, but I want to say, you know, our listeners that are still looking out there, it's still early. We are still in the heart of the recruitment season, so don't give up. and have faith.
Yes.
I learned a lot this episode. I think JP, I'm no matter what, I'm going to go after this episode. I'm going to go look up Wayne. I'm going to get onto your website, Wayne, which we'll include in our links and our description. We'll make sure that we have a link to your website. People can reach out to you on LinkedIn after hearing this, of course. I just think it's a great resource to have you out there, especially because China is sounding better and better every episode that we talk about China. So thank you for having us on the show on behalf of ITP, JP Mint, and I, and the other guys. Wayne, I want to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, JP.
Thank you very much, JP, everybody. And we will see you next episode. And let's go to China.